Hello everyone, my name is Jelena and this is the Petite Writer podcast. In this episode, we'll discuss the meaning of peripeteia, where it occurs, what its function is, and how you can use it in your own storytelling. The word peripeteia comes from Greek and means a sudden turn of events or an unexpected reversal, a turning point. You may have also heard the word as peripety, which is its anglicized form. According to Aristotle, peripeteia is the most powerful part of a plot in tragedies, although it is both welcome and used in other literary genres and is often seen in our own lives. To expand on this point, a tragedy is a drama in which the main character is brought to ruin and suffers the consequences of a flaw or weakness of character. The results of peripeteia are often shock, terror, or the need for mercy, which is why it is so often found in works of tragedy. The twist itself is often ironic, causing the protagonist's journey to go from good to bad, from hopeful to disastrous. The best uses of peripeteia are those that are part of a complex plot, inciting changes that can be either internal or external, but never shallow or simply there to cause shock for the reader. One of the best examples of peripeteia is Sophocles' Oedipus Rex. In the play, an oracle tells the king and queen that their child, Oedipus, once born, will be fated to murder his father and marry his mother. In order to stop this from happening to them, the parents send the child away to be killed, but instead, Oedipus is found and raised by King Polybus and Queen Merope in another kingdom. Years later, Oedipus would learn that he is adopted, and in the journey to find his real parents, he meets the oracle who tells him that his fate is to kill his father. As his life progresses, Oedipus has a chance encounter with his real father, although he doesn't know it, and ends up killing him in a confrontation. Later, in a heroic effort of banishing the Sphinx of Thebes, he is crowned King of Thebes and thus marries the Queen of Thebes, his mother. The peripeteia occurs at the end of the play when the messenger informs Oedipus of his true parentage, leading Oedipus to finally realize that he did in fact kill his father and marry his mother. As a result, his mother hangs herself. This turn of events causes him to change from a mighty king to a person of misery and regret. In the end, Oedipus gouges his own eyes out with a dagger and becomes blind to the world. Peripeteia is a crucial element of tragedy and provides a cathartic experience for the audience. In order to learn how to achieve peripeteia in your own work to its highest potential, we must first start with a quote from Aristotle, who believed that the highest form of drama was indeed tragedy. For him, tragedy is the imitation of an action that is serious and also, as having magnitude, complete in itself, in appropriate and pleasurable language, in a dramatic rather than narrative form, with incidents arousing pity and fear, wherewith to accomplish a catharsis of these emotions. So far, we've established that peripeteia is an unexpected change of a character's situation from one state to another. With this change usually comes a discovery which precedes the moment of peripeteia, a change from ignorance to knowledge, and often one that makes a character realize that they themselves are in fact the cause of their own downfall. A more modern example would be the film adaptation of Psycho, in which Norman Bates is not initially aware that he is in fact the one behind the murders. He covers for his mother, who he thinks is the one behind the killings, because in order to cope with what he has done, Norman splits his own personality into two pieces. It isn't until the very end that his world begins to break down when he becomes aware of what he has done. Each twist, each moment of peripeteia depends on ignorance right before it actually happens, because this is where the source of the tragedy lies. This sudden yet inevitable moment of discovery right before peripeteia occurs is known as anagnorisis. Like peripeteia, Anagnorisis is also shocking, and represents a sudden discovery made by a character, which will then lead to their sudden reversal of circumstances. In a work of tragedy, anagnorisis results in the recognition of the protagonist's true identity or nature. In order to make this twist work in your own story, it must be both unexpected and inevitable by the time you reach the end. In other words, the audience must be surprised by it, while at the same time coming to an understanding that it couldn't have ended any other way. Great tools to use throughout your story are foreshadowing and symbolism, which will place small clues for your audience as the story progresses. This way, when the end does come, the audience will still feel a sense of satisfaction, even though a tragedy will unfold, because the tragedy will make sense. For example, in Fight Club, the audience discovers that Tyler Durden doesn't actually exist. The same is true for Norman in Psycho, whose mother, Mrs. Bates, is also a figment of his imagination. Or, for example, in the movie Seven, the killer is revealed to have a completely different motivation for leading the two detectives out into the desert than was initially expected. Initially, the audience believes that he will lead the detectives to his final two victims, followed by a confession of his crimes. But the truth is far worse than they could have expected. In The Sixth Sense, Dr. Malcolm Crowe realizes that he has been dead the entire time, suddenly turning him from a living person to a ghost. Peripeteia is a tragedy's favorite tool to use because it sends an earthquake into the very world that the writer has created. And because the reader or viewer of your story also lives through your main character, you will shake the foundations of their world as well and give them the same experience that will be long remembered. A reader or audience member does not need to live the same lifestyle as your characters in order to empathize with your protagonist. Tragedy and peripeteia rely on basic human emotions and beliefs, which span many years into our distant past. The kinds of emotions that we all go through, regardless of where we find ourselves in the world. Shock, misery, punishment, grief, regret, revenge, downfall. No matter where your reader or viewer finds themselves in the world, if your story is well written with the right elements of peripeteia, your audience will feel the same necessary feeling of catharsis that accompanies every great work of tragedy. I hope that you enjoyed this episode of the podcast. If you'd like to contact me, you can do so on Twitter. My handle is @thepetitewriter, or you can visit my website, which is www.thepetitewriter.com. Thank you for listening. See you next time.